which the apotropos says, no, that's a material thing. All Shimon really owned in that field was just a narrow strip. That's what he was identifying as the border. To which Abaye says that's the container. But still, ultimately again, you still should have to go ahead. So in other words, now Abaye says the apotropos, even if that's a good claim, so that's fine, but you still have to leave in Shimon's possession a narrow strip. So Avi Alei, Livchad B'Tikrei. So listen, here's the problem. On the narrow strip, there was a line of countries which made that narrow border strip pretty valuable. So the Gemara says. So I know that you have a kavod, avun yasnikayim, have a coin the Omar Kazaki Balakati. This is great. Yeah, the Prophet says Reuben was alive. You should claim why it's true that I sold that border strip back to Shimon. I then subsequently purchased it. Abaye says I really shot the Kabbalah. She's saying good. Then Rabbi Yochanan in time the Amar Chazak Velakati no Nevana. So they'll say ultimately again we're going to claim I sold it, we're going to repurchase it with Jubilee. And they'll say the reason that is because this Rashi says Pesha Asar or Pesha Hitya. In other words, they'll say the king said there's a look at Rashi Naaman. Here's the case, just get the case in its totality. Naaman, the Pesha Asar Pesha Hitya. The Me'akashi Shigin Shaisa Shalom. So they'll say the king said here is where. Remember, Shimon sold the field, Levi sold the field for Shimon. Reuben, and then again, it gets more complicated. Now, what happens? So now, you have Reuben, there you have Shimon. Here we go. You have, right, Levi selling the field for Shimon, field A. Okay, fine. Now, what happens? Shimon sells field B to another party. But in that transaction, he uses field A as a border identification. Reuben signs on that shtar, that bill of sale that Shimon makes to another party, a field B. Afterwards, what happens? Shimon, so Reuben says, field A is money stolen from me by Levi and sold to you, Shimon. So remember again, Steve Halach in the Mishnah is you don't believe Reuben. You sign on that means you don't believe. But I said, in this case, it's becoming a bit more complicated. In this case, what happens is, Reuben goes ahead and claims the field is stolen. Not only that, Reuben brings witnesses. He brings Avis. That's saying the bank of He brings witnesses. Now they say, after he goes in and brings witnesses, what happens? He died. Okay, now what happens? Apotropos comes to Abaye. Apotropos says, listen, I'm here to help any of these claims. Abaye says, there is no claim. It's a Mishnah. Reuben signed on the document. Apotropos says, but he has Avis. Abaye says, go on second. Essentially, the Avis is negated in the face of what? Reuben's signature. In other words, once Reuben signs on that document, he effectively signs away his rights. Here's the Apotropos says, no. What you understand is, he actually went ahead and sold to Shimon a strip of land. Okay, so now what you're telling me is, when Reuben signed the document, he wasn't yielding his rights to the rest of the field. What was he acknowledging? That Shimon owns a strip of land of field A that borders on field B, but that in no way is yielding his rights to the rest of field A. That's good. But Abaye says, okay, that's fine, so you can pursue your claim on the rest of field A. But what? But you have to go ahead and at least leave in Shimon's possession what? The strip of land. To which Apotropos says, but one second, there's more to the story. Reuben bought back the strip of land from Shimon. He bought it back. To which Abaye says, which is very saying, good, why? This is the passion, I said passion, why? The only way you knew about the sale, this house, is through Reuben, right? In other words, right through Reuben. We didn't know about the sale. Without the sale, all you would have is what? Is Abe was saying that Lamaisa, the field, was stolen from Reuben. So now Reuben, so to speak, his apotropos is telling us that a sale happened at the strip. Now Reuben is further qualifying and telling us after the sale occurred, Reuben bought it back from Shimon. It's a pesha, also a pesha intercase, in which case Reuben slash the apotropos should be believed. And the way that Reuben, it turns out that Reuben should really have to be able to, but assuming he could prove his claim, that he should really be able to roughly the big of entirety, including the strip of palm trees. Incredible. Rabbi, so what's the takeaway from the story? Rabbi, I man to mocha apotropa, no kim ki and yada rafu for this was the ask. Also, the entire takeaway is you gotta get an apotropos like this. Right? Yeah. Also, this is you gotta surround yourself with good people. Like this apotropos Rabbi says knew exactly what he was doing. Good. So we'll say so for our purposes, I love for my son. How do we pass it? So this is a complicated case. That is a very complicated case. Remember again, what we have essentially embedded in this case is a couple of different cases, just because I'm just going to tell you quickly. Rambam Paskins, this is an Hilchos Toing the Nitan, Arek Tes Zayin, Halachas Aleph and Beis. We're not going to have time for everything. I'm going to leave out the Kalam case. I'm just going to give you the Mishnah. Here it is. Reuben Shemaka the Shimon Saga. Reuben sent the fields. Reuben sold the field to Shimon. Bahaya Levi, Rambam changes the names. I'm going to keep it like we had it, right? So let's say, so Levi sold the field to Shimon, and Reuben was one of the witnesses on the shtai. And what happens? Subsequently, right? Reuben claims after the transaction occurs. Reuben claims that what? That Allah Kalamaisa, Levi stole it from me. Aim Shomim. The Rambam passes like this. No. Even though I remember again, you're going to claim, yes, I signed on it because I wanted it to go from Levi to Shimon because I feel that I feel back from Shimon from Levi. The Rambam says, please close. Halacha myself. There's absolutely nothing to talk about once you are party to the transaction. Right? Once you are a witness on that shtar, you have effectively ceded and yielded any right that you have to hold up your Azra. However, the Rambam says that Reuben acted as a dial for Shtaros, he does not yield or cede any future rights. Again, going back to the distinction of the Gemara. Allah and aid certifies the transaction. A dial only certifies signature. So everyone will say, Allah we don't trust like Allah in this mission, like that. There's more, much more. Again, those telling me that Arashka Zayin, Halachas, Aleph, and Beis. All a lot more interesting at least, but that's the halacha that I'm saying. So, Mishnah, quickly. Mishnah, look at the Derech Sadeh. So, again, it just gets better. Listen to this case. And I will say, by the way, you ask yourself, what does this have to do with Ksubas? So, first of all, it's so good, so he cares. Right there. That's answer number one. That's answer number one. So remember again, the reason, just to give you know, in all seriousness, the reason why we're doing this is because remember, the way this parak started off, were with the rulers of Admon and Hanan. And remember again, it started off with a discussion about Mizonos. That's what Ksubas. Now, let's say we're just going through all of their rulings. Watch, this is a great case. Misha, Allah Kumidina says, we'll say, watch this case. Reuben goes overseas. Now, Reuben owns a field. Now, interestingly enough, the case over here is Reuben's field is landlocked, which means that the only way he was ever able to get into his sister's house, he had a right of way. With someone. So what happened? So Misha, so now once the time, he comes back, he's been away for a while, he can't remember the right of way. Where is my right of way to get into my field? And of course, as one can imagine, none of the neighbors are being forthcoming. Right? No, because obviously no one wants to give up that. No one wants to give up their land. So Admon Omer, Nilek Lo Futzal. Admon says, look, since we have to use logic, figure out what is the shortest way to get into this field, and let's assume that was the previously established right of way. The Chum say no, Yikna Lo B'derech Samei Amana or Yifrach Ba'admon. You have a choice. Either go ahead and take Kafaro, whoever's willing to negotiate with you, or fly. I'll fly. Right? In other words, right? Okay, right? I'll fly. Figure out a way to fly. Right? So again, this is actually interesting. Come say, listen, Reuben, you went overseas, you lost your information. The burden is on you. So pretty much, again, no one has to do anything for you, so you're going to have to figure out a way to negotiate for $5 right of pass. Let's analyze. So my time is the Rabbanon. Shabbat Rabbanon. So I understand. What's the logic of the Rabbanon? It's able to say the reason why the Rabbanon's position doesn't seem to make sense is if there's one thing we know, it's that what? It's that what? Reuben had a right of way. Had a right of way. Right? Listen, I'll tell you, but the right of way today, even today, and like this weird identity, the right of way agreements are like you would think should be the simplest part of a real estate transaction. It's incredible how complicated right of way agreements are. It's fascinating. In any event, so Gemara says this, I don't understand. Obviously, he has a right of way. This was his field. He used the field. He was getting in and out of his field, so there was a right of way agreement. So Adnal is saying, listen, logically, he's going to take in the easiest path. So just assume that's the path he had. What's logical, Rabbi? All right, you know, Rav, watch this. You don't shoot people. Yes, I gave it away a little bit. I'm sorry. Shoot people are better than other than other with myself. I gave it away. In other words, this is a landlocked field. There's 4 different people. So we'll say, what's the problem? What's the problem? The problem is if you can imagine as if this guy heavy and for shalom away from the Kiddush, so beautiful. And then he goes to number 1. You know, was mine by the way here? No. Here. Like number 2. No, not here either. 3, 4. So we'll say, the problem is each has the ability to connect it to the other. So this is one of these interesting cases where we know a right of way exists, but we then can't figure out which is force against any one particular party. If that's the case, then again, why does Adnon say that Ruvain can seemingly seize the shortest right of way? So Amarava, very quickly, Ba'arbal the Asimikvah Arbal. So Ba'arbal the Asimikvah had for the Amalo Pli the Mazimat. So let's listen to this. You have 4 people who bought their own respective fields from 4 other people. Or for that matter, 4 people who bought their fields from 1 person. Everyone agrees in that case, each party could deflect to someone else. Keeply, the Gemara says, so Keeply, where does not like this now? Let's listen to this. The Chaz, the Asim Hada. So watch this. Let's say now all 4 fields, all 4 of the landlocked fields, or the landlocked fields, are all owned by 1 person. Right? So you've got Reuben in the middle, and all 4 of the surrounding fields are owned by 1 person. Rabbi say what? Bought it from 4 individual owners. So in this case over here, we'll call him Shimon. Shimon now owns the 4 fields which surround Reuben's field, but Shimon bought it from 4 independent people. Watch this. So Admon Sava, we come up and that is the Gaba. So Admon says, listen, Reuben can go to Shimon. Give me a right of way. You know that I own a right of way. You can figure out where, but you own it. I own it, so give it to me. There's this. Rabbanon said, listen to this. Shimon can say to him like this. Don't shut up. You be quite quiet. Do you know if you make problems for me? Now, if you share my right, then that's the story. So it says this. Shimon can say to Reuben, here's the deal. If you want to negotiate, you negotiate. You're going to make problems. I'm going to return the land to the previous 4 owners. It's going to be owned by 4 independent people. And therefore, what I'm saying, Reuben, you'll never be able to get your right of way. Why? Because each of them could respect you to the other. So if you want to negotiate, you can negotiate. But if you're going to claim Magiali, right, something's owed to me, I'll simply go ahead and return the land, and then you'll be stuck forever. Incredible. So the Gemara says. So I'm sorry. Who Damalu? So let's say quickly. Finish. Shopee. So yeah. Who Damalu? A guy says, Who Damalu? Dikla Libras. Listen to this. A guy, Reuben, is about to die. Right before he dies, he says, I want my daughter to inherit the palm tree. He's giving a palm tree to his daughter. Also, Yasmi, saying, so Reuben dies, and his sons went ahead and divided up the estate, but didn't give the palm tree to the daughter. As Yosef said, when a husband lo yavel dikla, Rabbi Yosef Lememar, and you must listen. Rabbi Yosef wanted to say what I said, and this is something like the Mishnah. Why Rakana? The Torah wants to go ahead and come to cut the palm tree, right? And each son could say what? Each one could say what? No, not for my portion, for this portion, for this portion, for this portion. I mean, I buy you meat, I mean, it's not a good comparison. I think I'll fight the mathematically. So listen to this. Here's the difference. So in the case of the right of way really only does exist on one field. When it comes to the daughter's right to a palm tree, that is the right to balance upon all of their inheritance portions. So therefore, what should we do? What they should do is give her a palm tree, and then we divide the estate minus the palm tree. That's what should happen. Okay, we'll say very quickly, I'm sorry, just give me 1 minute and we'll stop. Actually, I will say, we stopped over here for today. We'll just pick up with this very last piece of legislation. I tried. Okay, we'll say Shkoyach again. Great week ahead of us. Amir Hashem, Shkoyach. Tell them you have a great day, everyone. All right, I will say good morning, let us begin. Hashem, a great is for us to enter into our last week of the Masechus Kesubos. I want to go ahead and begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Should thank our Talmud sponsors for the month of Tishrei, to thank Dr. Linda Weinberg, Sarah Nikki Grant, Studio, Ina, and loving men who dedicated ensuring this month, loving many of their husband, father, and leader, Dr. Paul Weinberg, Eretz Moshe Ben Abraham David. Thank Ayala Sales Family for dedicating the Shiur this month in exclusive of Gur Shalita for Shivamis Pas Susha, and we keep on Zed, all of our fields from this level of protection, all of the burning sponsors. Abram's Dyson, the version of the Isaac of his grandmother, of his grandfather, Abraham Ben Aaron, Svi Shiur, and his Kiba, and Ali Shmuel and Shia Pepper, in honor of Ari Lerner and all he does for this year. Incredible, beautiful. I also like to thank our Dafyomi sponsors for today. Aaron and Andrea Spellis, in honor of the Bas Mitzvah of their granddaughter, Kayla Rosenblum, which should grow their Torah and mitzvahs in their office to entire family and all of the beautiful. Also with that, let us begin very, very excited. First of all, very excited to in general, and also to recognize the very beautiful things like this confluence of events. We've got finishing the Sefta, on Rosh Chodesh, so we're ending things, beginning things, closing out for the Tishrei, beginning fresh month, and the Hashem is such excitement. Sefta, also let's begin. Today's daf is Puskas 109. We are picking up in Eretz Hashem on the bottom of the Testament days. 108b. 108b. We left off. We left off yesterday at the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says as follows: Aposik Ma'os the Testament. It's a very interesting case. Someone promises money to his son. An age-old story, right? So someone promises money to his son. And I will say, in this particular case, what's unfolding over here is like this. Essentially, we're talking about a dowry. So imagine for a moment that Reuben is marrying Rachel. Rachel's father promises Reuben some amount of money. And what happens? And then the father-in-law extends his foot. So what does it mean extends his foot? So again, extends his foot means the father-in-law doesn't pay. Father-in-law doesn't pay. So Rachel's father doesn't pay the dowry. Now we could actually just a moment. Pasha Bas Harag. Lashon Zion the Amar Lo Eish Sheinu Chashbet Dvarav Tol Tit Sha'al Dabi Rabbi. This is interesting. This Talmudic expression of extending your foot means essentially I'm giving you nothing. Take dirt that's on my shoe. Take dirt. Now, in general, what this sounds like is the father-in-law is intentionally not giving his son-in-law the money. But the truth is, the priest doesn't have to be set up that way. That's just the way that's what the Mishnah is saying. So, Portugal is right over here. Take the dirt that's on my foot. I'm not giving you any money. The point over here is father-in-law promised money and now is not delivering. So let's say now the problem we're in is what Kedushin has already taken place. So Reuven was already Mekadosh Rachel. Yisrael has not yet been done. Father-in-law indicates that whatever the situation is, he will not pay the money. What's the halacha? Not the test. Patient actually having Rosha. The Chachamim say ultimately again, literally she has to sit until her hair flows away, which means she's stuck. Rachel's stuck. That in other words, at this point in time, the control is in Reuven's hands, and either he can make a choice to marry her, right, or ultimately just wait and do nothing until her father pays back. After all, again, there was an agreement. There was an agreement that was made. Rachel's father is not honoring the agreement. So again, moving very on to a holding pattern for his father-in-law pays the agreement. Adnan says, the third thing you should tell me, Rachel should say to Reuven, so Adnan says like this. Rachel could say to Reuven, listen, I, Rachel, was never promised you money. I found never promised you money. Then you can hold me over my head. If you can hold me over my head, then you can essentially, hold me in this marriage until either I pay you or until I pay you. But again, Akshav, Sha'aba Pasak, Mani the Lasos, Okinos, Okidon. She says, what do you want from me? My father promised this. So you're going to hold me accountable, you're going to punish me for my father's actions. But you didn't marry me, right? You see it. Or divorce me. So let's say, I'm not giving you out, no, I need to go. The Gemara says, I think Adnan is correct. So therefore, I'm going to say, fundamental mashaykhs. Once again, just to reframe the case. So Rachel's going to get married to Reuven. Rachel's father promises Reuven $10,000. Right, that's the agreement, that's the dowry. Reuven does Kedushin. Now, father-in-law says, I'm not giving you, I can't give you, I won't give you, whatever it is. The point is, he's not giving. So now, I'm going to say, Reuven has every right to essentially hold Rachel in this marriage until her father decides to pay. And ultimately, if he doesn't pay, so then Rachel's going to grow old in his sleep. But Kedushin, Adnan says that's not right. It's not right. Right? Ultimately, again, I was about it, even if I'm not necessarily saying it's right, I'm not just saying it's legal. This is technically a legal recourse that he has to force his father-in-law's time. So Rachel says that's Adnan says that Rachel can say to her husband, that's not right. I didn't enter into union with you. My father did. Why are you punishing me for the default of my father? Listen, don't keep me in limbo. Either marry me or divorce me. Zakai, I think I love Paul's father. Let's go. So let's listen to the Aikana. Does not reflect the view of the following time. It's a rich time. We don't know about it. It's a fascinating case. This time, I'm Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda, no nephew, Amen, but I'm a person that was the first. The Pasha was Harayel. The only Kisha Herman Abba Hasak Harai, Ma Ani Yefoda Lashes. So that's very interesting. A different case going here. In this case, I'm quoting the same case. But in this case, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda, posits that every one of the dudes, in a case where the father defaulted on the agreement he made, that Reuven can't hold Rachel hostage in this marriage. And Rachel has every right to say, I didn't default. Either marry me or divorce me. But don't keep me in this state. Sa'amana. So there lies in the focus Hachamim and Hachamim. Ashapaske he alasma. I will say in the Bryce's version, when the father defaulted, everyone agrees that Reuben can't hold up. And I said, everyone is going to agree that on a conceptual level, a man should never hurt his wife in a marriage. Right? That's never something that Chazal wrote. Why did the Baruch created the system of in a way which seems to give the husband much more power, sometimes even absolute power? Anyway, that's a question that we're going to ask. I have to ask myself that question. My hands are funny. And everyone will think that why the halachas of seem to really heavily slanted to give the man the power. But again, this is a legal discussion. So legal discussions sometimes do not enter into arena of what is right. Right? We all know this. That we teach this to our kids. Just because something is mutter, right? Just because it's permissible does not mean it should be done. So again, we're talking about what's permissible. Right? So Chachamim say again, it's permissible for him to use the marriage as leverage to go ahead and extract money from his father. It's legal. It's legal. Is it right? Is it right? Of course it's not right. It's just important for them to stick to them. They know everyone does. It's always just like guys who get older, especially you know that even when everyone knows something, it's still important to say. And I also, by the way, this explains, well, I mean, person has to dissolve in marriage, again, should never ever be used as language. That should never be used as a mechanism to extract something that a husband. It's not what Chazal, it's not what Rosh was, it's not what Chazal was. And the truth is, nothing good ever comes from trading another human being, and nothing good ever comes by using halacha as a means of extortion. Okay, so let's back to why listen, so again, so the Nisa, Raisa has a different view on this, right? So in the Raisa's version, Rabbi Chachamim and Admon both agree. Guess what? That Allah for Nisa, where it was the father who made the financial arrangement with Reuben, and that the father divorced, or I know some other ways, again, the fourth doesn't pay whatever it is. So everyone agrees from the Yehuda that Allah for Nisa, what this is to live in the manual adjustment. But you cannot keep him in the best state. So what's the focus versus there was no focus? What happens if Rachel promised Reuben money? Okay, so before they do Kiddushin, Rachel says to Reuben, listen, you Mekadosh me, and if you Mekadosh me, I'm going to give you $10,000. Okay, so now what happens? Reuben is Mekadosh Rachel, and then what happens? Rachel doesn't pay, won't pay, can't pay, doesn't pay. So I say, now watch this. Shacham becomes say to Yeshiva Achikav the Rosha, so Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, you made a promise, down in the commitment. Reuben is not completed to do the same with you until you figure this out. So you can go into a holding pattern over here until you, Rachel, figure out how to satisfy the obligation you are given. Admon says, just listen to this. Admon says, so what can she say in this case? This is great. She says, no. When I said, I'm going to give you $10,000, I figured the same bank that has been bankrolling my life up until this point in time. Right? It's incredible. No credit limits, right? No pre-qualifications, nothing. I figured the same bank that was taking care of me my entire life is going to take care of me now. So she said, I know I said that I was going to pay you. But again, I automatically assumed that it was my father who was going to go out and pay for this ticket. So she says, what do you want from me? I guess, in other words, what Rachel says, the point time was, I'm not focused. It's difficult over here. I never had the money to back up this promise, right? I never had the money to back up this promise. It was always going to be my father. Now my father doesn't want to pay. Hey, don't put me hostage in this relationship. Either marry me or divorce. So I just want to point out over here, so you may now explain that there's two versions of this purchase. In our Mishnah's version, right, the Machlokas case is where the father of the bride, the father of Rachel promised and then doesn't pay. Chachamim say, Okay, Reuben can wait. Reuben can do nothing. Reuben going to a holy pattern until the shver goes up. Like Admo says, she could say to him, "This is not my fault. That's my fault. Either divorce me or marry me, but don't go and keep me in this holy state." Like Raisa now says, no. In that case, where the father defaults, everyone agrees that Rachel could tell Reuben, "You divorce me or marry me." He's adding people, but what's the matter in this case? The Rachel promises the money. So the Chachamim say, "Listen, Rachel, you made a promise. Make good on the promise. If you don't make good on the promise, Reuben has under obligation towards you. You go into a holding pattern." Admiral says, no. When Rachel says, "I made the promise," it was using my father. I was relying on my father. So ultimately, you don't hold it against me. You're married to your divorce. Incredible. I don't know what Rabbi Rothschild says, and everyone saying the Bryce open. So the Rabbi Rothschild has to be Admiral. Again, in the Bryce, you have Rabbi Rothschild agreeing with Admiral. So Tana, let's analyze this. When is this so? When is this so sensitive? You know, Gola. Perfect. Let's say when is all of this said, right? This means you guys said, we're talking about the adult there. But with a Ketema, with a minor, we will force him, we will force him. So you know it says, forcing the mind. Force who? Force who to do what? He label if ultimately at the end of the day we cannot force the father to pay off. So we'll say, it makes much more sense to force the father in a case of the Ebola than it does to force it in a case of the Ketema. Why? Because we'll say, we're talking about a case where the Ketema promised money. Right, Rachel always promised money to Reuben. What's the halachic weight of that promise? Not there. Like where the Shalom is. So if you're going to be talking about a case where you're forcing the father to pay out, it makes more sense to force the father to pay out than a case where the Gola daughter made a commitment. So the Gemara says, "You may want to tell me about it. Ella Amarava Kolfin Metal Litin." Now the Rabbi says, no. What it means is you force the husband to give a get. So they say, Halacha, so if I'm in a case of a Ketana, so because the weight of the Ketana, it's different from the Ketana, ultimately again, not binding. If Halacha, when I say a piece of the Ketana, you force the husband to give a get. We'll see how that plays out in the Rambam just a little bit. I don't use Ketana as we should do this here. One more thing, so I said, let's finish this piece out and then we'll go back to the Rambam. So listen to this. So Amar Yitzchak ben Elazar Moshe the Piskah. Come up and show me the raw and so we'll say now we're going back to the Mishnah. Any time that you find that Rabbi Gamliel says, right? Any place where you find that Rabbi Gamliel said halacha follows Amon, halacha follows it. The halacha follows. Already Rabbi Rothschild. Even the Raisa. It's actually even the Raisa just in Mishnah. So now we're saying whenever Rabbi Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. So is that true, Jeff? To the Mishnah and the Raisa as well. Amar me coming in the Mishnah. Did I say just in the Mishnah? No. Listen to what I'm saying. I said any place means what? A Mishnah or a Brisa. Any time that the Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. Incredible. I'm going to say it here. I'm going to based on halacha Yotze By ultimately, so listen to this. Now, what I'm saying is in the Rabbi, in the two situations, ultimately again, where based on Shamar Hanan, Yotzebo, right? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says that halacha follows Hanan, Shiva Dran Shamar Admon in halacha Yotzebo, but ultimately again the 7 cases where Admon said the halacha, and Rabbi Gamliel said that the halacha like Admon, the halacha does not follow Admon. So right, what does this mean? Even now, Shiva Dran Shamar Hanan halacha can also Yotzebo. There's an meanings like this: the two halachas that Hanan brought down, and ultimately again, Yotze, those who prosecute like Hanan, halacha follows them. The Shividan Shana Adno in halacha kimoso, and the Yotze, the 7 cases that are brought up in the name of Adno, the halacha neither follows Adno, nor like the ones who prosecute like Hanan. I have discussed the halacha to this year. Welcome to Shemar Rabbi Gamliel, Ron has to be at the halacha kimoso. We just said before, that any time that the Gamliel said, I see the words of Admon to be correct, that the halacha follows Rabbi Gamliel, or the halacha follows Rabbi Gamliel, Admon, and those who pass by, the halacha is what it means to say. Shnei Dvarim Sha'amar Hanan, halacha kimoso So the two situations where Hanan said, halachas, the halacha follows him, and those who questioning like Shiva Dram Shama Admon, Ein Halacha Kiyotzi Bas. So it's like the 7 cases where Admon brought down this halacha. Halacha does not follow him. So the Gemara says, the answer Ein Halacha Kiyotzi Bas. Halacha doesn't follow those who quote him. Hakimoso, Halacha B'Kumi. It sounds like it was just Admon by himself. That halacha would follow him. Don't have Yitzchak and Allah in the Fiska. We must understand in these cases that's like all these missionaries. There is Admon stating the halacha, and then you have the Gamliel weighing in that the halacha follows Al-Dakar Yotzedo. The Gemara now suggesting maybe there's a distinction between when Admon says the halacha himself versus when you have Rabbi Rothschild coming along and saying, the halacha follows him. I Bahamar of Yitzchak when I was in the Fiskiya. But not from Shamar of the Gamliel Ron has to be Amalach. So I but we just said remember whenever the Gamliel says, I see the words of Admon to be correct, that's the halacha follows him. So the Gemara says, Amar in, no Amar no. It sounds like the halacha only follows Admon when Rabbi Gamliel voices his support. But if Rabbi Gamliel doesn't voice his support, then the halacha won't follow Admon. Allah so is to say, Shnei Dvarim Shama Hanan Halacha K'mosei Yotzedo. That was what it was to say. In the two situations, the two things that Hanan said, that the halacha follows. In the two cases where Hanan quoted the halacha, Yotzedo, others supported him, ultimately again halacha follows him. Shiva Dvarim Shama Admon Yishmein Shalacha K'mosei Yotzedo. Yishmein She'ein Halacha K'mosei Ela Yotzedo. But by Admon, there are some situations where halacha said halacha won't follow him. Other times that the halacha will only follow him when he's quoting in the names of others. One of the Shara Gamliel, Admon, halacha Kimoso, anything that the Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon, but not necessarily in the other cases of Admon. So the Gemara is essentially just trying to go back and trying to figure out do we find the principle that can apply to the rhythms of Admon and Hanan. As I said, we're going to see the halacha. There's no overarching principle. In fact, each of these cases are wrapping independently. We're going to see in just a moment. So it's like, halacha l'maisa, let's close out the sugya. How do we prosper? This is really a great case. Money's promised. And what happened? Money's not paid. The only problem is, at the time of default, what's the status of the marriage? The status of marriage? Kedushin has already been done. So now we have a problem. So you're both saying, if you default before Kedushin, fine. So then, but, don't get married. Everybody go home. That's it. The problem we have over here is the default happens after Kedushin before Nisur. Furthermore, 2 cases of default. What are the 2 cases of default? Case A, father default. Case B, Rachel's daughter, wife default. One says Machlokes, Admon Chachamim. Then there's a further Machlokes, Mishnah and the Brisa as to when the Machlokes apply. So I say, here we go. Rabbi Bastis, Hilchos Ishas, Tarek Pachimor, Halacha Ches Zayin. I must have asked me a couple of weeks ago why that is for the Rambam and not the Shulchan Aruch. So this is the only point for the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch has to be the same way. In general, the derech of the Rambam is that the Rambam's formulation of halacha is often much truer to the text of the Gemara. So we're just trying to extract halacha l'maisa from the Gemara. The lashon of the Rambam often adheres you to the sugya much more, whereas the Shulchan Aruch already is a distilled version of the halacha. So again, the bottom line is say the same thing. Listen to what the Rambam says. Here we go. Great case. So this is great. So here's how the Shulchan says that case. Right? So what happens? Rachel's going to marry Judah. Rachel's father, we'll call him Yaakov. Right? Rachel's father commits $10,000 to Rachel's husband, to Reuben. The Halach Ha'av L'Medina Achares. The father relocates to another country. Sorry? Another place. He goes out, like, Yichol L'Chilom L'Bal, and he goes Hasaki Alatzmi. Ma'an Yichol L'Rasos. O Pinos B'Lo N'Grino, O Patrein B'Gat. So those says, number one, you're casting like Admon in the Mishnah. When it was the father who defaulted, Rachel says to her cousin, listen, I give you either divorce me or marry me. Right? But don't keep me on the So they say that's halach one, like Amor the Mishnah. Aval, because the alatzma, because the alatzma, yada, arezia yosheves ad shetimsa ma shepasta o ad shepastas. So that's an interesting enough halach l'naisa. We do pass come in the crisis case. If she is the one who made the commitment, then ultimately she has to figure out a way to honor it. And he has no obligation to do anything until she figures out how to honor this commitment. Also remember again, this is where she made the commitment. Remember, Admon's out for her was that. Remember again, what was Admon's out for her? What was his out for her? I didn't promise. I know. It was me. And I'm an extension of my father, right? In other words, so when I say I promise you through my father, so but I'm not asking like the coming to the crisis case, namely that when she makes the commitment, Rachel herself makes the commitment to Ruben, and then the false Ruben to keep the holding pattern of Kedusha until she comes up with the money. And ultimately, again, doesn't have to either marry her or divorce her. Once again, this is the legal moral ethical. Should a man ever keep a woman in a relationship over money? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Again, if she says, give me more time, I'm happy to go and try to figure out how to do it. That's fine. She wants the time. But Lamais, again, this is the legal ruling, not the moral ethical or the implication. So it says, halach l'maisa, you can't select Admon the Mishnah, therefore again, if father defaults, Ruvain can't hold Rachel in a relationship. If Rachel defaults, he has the ability to go into a holding pattern which is incredible. Mishnah says, very interesting case. Ori ala saga with Hazor. Okay, so let me give you the background to this. Take a look at Rashi. First Rashi is a Mishnah. First Rashi is a Mishnah. So we'll say in the short lines of Rashi, 2, 4, 6, 7 lines into the short lines. Rashi says, Ori ala saga. Watch this. This is fascinating. Ruvain ma'arer al saga shebiyad Shimon. So we'll say, so here's the case. Shimon has a field. Ruvain is a field. The field really belongs to you. It was stolen from me, and you bought it illegally. Now again, he's not accusing Shimon of being complicit in the theft. He's just saying, Shimon, you think you own the field is really mine. Okay, fine. Now watch this. Within the Ayah said Shimon, but my lady Shema from the Pal doesn't remember. Okay, so here's the case. Right? You've got Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon is in current possession of a field that he bought from Levi. So Levi sold Shimon a field. Reuben says, Shimon, that field you have, that's my field. Levi stole it from me and sold it to you. Okay, here's the wrinkle. The Mishnah says, Fassamai means, let's say, that when Levi sold the field to Shimon, they drew up the documents, and one of the witnesses on the bill of sale is Reuben. So Reuben is a witness. Reuben is a witness on the sale document from Levi to Shimon, and now Reuben, who's one of the witnesses, says to Shimon, by the way, this field is stolen. Look at that. Shivu Chasum, Ashtar HaMefiyah Shechasum, that the Shimon Kishem HaCholeh. So let's say, so now, obviously, right, what's going on exactly? Right, so Reuben's claiming, so Shimon, the field you bought from Levi is really Levi stole it from me and sold it to you. And now we look at the report and we see that Reuben himself is one of the witnesses on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. So what's that one? Admon Omer. Admon says it's not a problem. We say to Reuben, so obviously ask Reuben, I don't understand. If the field, if Levi stole the field from you, then why would you agree to sign Shtar Mechira? Right? Why would you agree to sell the bill of sale? Admon says there's a perfect answer for this. Shini Noachni, Harisha Kasha Himana. So let's listen to this. Because Reuben could say, listen, Levi is a gazman. Right? Levi is a thief. Right? Maybe he's a strong guy. I knew I never had any chance of getting that field back from Levi. Shimon, I know you. You're a reasonable guy. So I figured if I could get the field away from Levi to you, Shimon, now I have a better chance of getting back my stolen field. That's why I agreed to sign on the bill of sale so I could get it out of Levi's hands into your hands. Incredible, incredible. It was about reality TV. So I'm just saying, like, oh, this is so great. This is incredible. So this is now listen to this. The hum say, no, come on, cut it out. Even as if so, you're already talking about it. Ruvain, again, Ruvain, if you come forward with a claim that the fields that Shimon currently has is stolen from you, that's fine. But for myself, once you're signing onto once you're not a party, but once you're a witness for the transaction, you've lost any right claim that this property belongs to, even as if you say. So take a look at Rashi. Actually, even as if so, the whole of the chasam, hold the shit in law is it. Essentially, what that comes is like this: the act of signing on a document, or the act of witnessing a document of sale transaction, is effectively saying what? This field has nothing to do with it. You're giving up any rights to the field. So you also find that not like this. On the flip side, I saw a similar affair. Sorry, on the flip side, I saw a similar affair. So let's look at this case. Look at Rashi. I saw המוחזק בסמל האחר שלא נוכל לבין זה האור עלה אלא לאיש אחר היה מוכר סודה מסגרי ומיצר לו 4 מצרי הסודה וכסף לו במצרים מיצר פרוני סודה שלי ועשה סודה שלי. So let's say now watch this case. So let's say for a moment that Reuben now owns the disputed field, right? I'm sorry, Shimon, right? So Shimon owns the disputed field. So now, what does Shimon do? Shimon sells another piece of property, right? So let's say now, let's call the disputed field A, right? So same case, right? Reuben bought the field from, Shimon bought the field from Levi, right? Then there's Reuben. Reuben, of course, is claiming that Levi stole the field from him, and now sold it to Reuben. Sold it to Shimon. Sorry. One more time, I'm going to get this right. Okay, so let's say, so again, remember, Levi sells a field to Shimon, right? In the back of all of this, we have Reuben claiming that Levi really sold that field to him, and now, all right, stole. That's not it. Right? Levi sells the field to Shimon. Good, beautiful. Reuben now is claiming that the field that Shimon bought from Levi was stolen from him by Levi. Okay, so that was case 1. And case 1 is where it turns out that Reuben himself is an aid on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. Okay, so now what do we do with that? So again, according to Admon, so Chachamim say that's it. Reuben, you lost any claim. You signed on the shtar. You lost any claim. Admon says no. There's still another claim. If you claim, Reuben can claim. It's easier for me to get the field back from Shimon than it was from Levi. Fine. Case 2 is Reuben. Sorry, Shimon is selling the field. Shimon's like, so let's call disputed field is field A. Shimon is selling field B. Field B. Fine, no problem. So let's say often the way when you would sell a field, if there was a field that was next to other fields, the way you would identify the field that you were selling is by identifying the other fields all around it, right? I'm selling you field A, field B, that is bordered by fields A, D, E, so in this case over here, Shimon is selling field B. And in the document of sale, he makes reference, he says field B borders on my other field, field A. Field A. So in this case, field A is being used as a demarcation point, as a border. So right, field A, the dispute was not being sold at all. But it's being used to identify field B, which is the transaction. So now Reuben is using field A, right? Sorry, Shimon, thank you. Shimon is using field A as just to identify the border of the field that is being sold. Now, I will say, Reuben is signing on this document also. Reuben is signing on this document. So now, here's the shaila. Now, in this transaction, in this document, so when Shimon is selling field B, he's also what? So to speak, solidifying his ownership over field A. because he's using field A to identify one of the borders of field B. Reuven, who's claiming that this field A was originally his, is signing on his document. So Rabbi says, now what's going to happen after this is over? So now Reuben is going to want to come back and say to Shimon, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi who subsequently sold it to you. The Mishnah says, no. I saw Simon, La'akar, Ibn Esim. So at the end of the day, even Admon agrees, which is interesting. Even Admon agrees in this case, that once Reuben signed on this type of star, which used the contested field as a border for the field being sold, everyone agrees is that Reuben has relinquished any further rights to claim that the field is his. Okay, interesting. Let's go. I'm not buying. Okay, let's go back to that first case. Great. Let's go back to the first case. But that's the right. Good. Yes, so the truth is, I realize that this we actually have to stay on target because the truth is, the Shkodesh is Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So the truth is, Tuesday and Wednesday happen are a little bit, and Monday, a little bit long. So we gotta stay, and we only have 45 minutes on Tuesday. But we're gonna be fine. So here we go. So she goes, all right, bye. So we'll say now we're focusing on case one. So once again, let's just get back to case number one. Right? Shimon purchases a field from Levi. There's a document, right? And the document that says that Levi sold the field to Shimon. One of the witnesses is Reuben. Reuben then comes after the sale is complete, and Reuben comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, the field is mine, Levi stole it from me. What? Signed on the document. So again, Chachamim say, sorry, Reuben, you may not have anything, because halacha myself, you signed on the document. Sorry, you were a witness. We're done. Almon says, no, Reuben has a claim. Yes, I signed the document in order to get it out of Levi's hands. So your hands shouldn't to the head, and I have a better chance with you of getting back my land. Fine. Some Rabbi says, Lo shano ela 8. That's only true. Like all of this is only true. If halacha myself, Reuben signed, or is the machlokas, is only if Reuben signed as a witness. About Dayan lo Reuben asks if you say. This is fascinating. So I say, if it's really incredible. So if halacha myself, Reuben served as a Dayan, as a judge, everyone agrees that he can still make the claim of fact, even though he was the judge over the document. What is that? Why do you need a judge in this case? Look at Rashi about Dayan. שהוא בשטר מחירים ובייסים לקיימו במשפט קיום שטרס שהעידים באים עם כסף ידם והדיין הם תוספים שטר הדינם נפקו לקבלנו והסידו סעד יחסים וזרע והשם ובקרוב. So I say, watch this. Let's say again, they come to Beis Din to certify document. קיום שטרס. We've spoken about certification of document once and over again. What is קיום שטרס? The danger of documents, and one hand in halacha, documents, right? When you have a signed star, so that's incredible. The problem is somebody go ahead and forge, right? Can you forge a star? Sure. So there's a concept of star certification. We call it kiyum shtaros. What's the process of kiyum shtaros? You bring your star to Beis Din, right? The Beis Din takes a look at it. The Beis Din brings in testimony, or brings in the witnesses to certify that is there, that is their signature. You write a little pen pick, right? You write a little either on the document itself or an attached document, and done. The shtar is certified. So this is incredible. So Abai is just like this. The machlokas Almon and the Chachamim in the first cases of the Mishnah is only where Reuben signed as a witness on the transaction. If he was a diamond on the Beis Din that certified the document, that does not erode his ability to later on claim that the field was stolen from him. Why, Rabbi Say? This is actually fascinating. We tell you Rabbi Chia, Ein ha'edim chosin al hashtar ela im kein karol. Aval on the base, Aval hadayanu chosin in avaku shelo karol. They'll say absolutely incredible. When you witness a transaction, right? When you sign as an aid, we'll say, what are you signing on? You're signing on the validity of the transaction. Like that's what you're signing on. That I witness this transaction. This transaction is binding, valid, and legal. When you're a dayan for kiyum shtaris, they will say, "What are you certifying? What are you certifying? Signatures. You are not certifying the transaction. In fact, the dayan, sometimes like kiyum shtaris, the dayanim aren't even reading what's in the documents, right? Because I'm not certifying the transaction. I have no idea about the transaction. Kiyum shtaris is there just simply to certify the signatures on the document themselves. But it has nothing, it's so fascinating. So fascinating. So you could have a situation of Kiyum shtaris, which makes sense to us because otherwise, Kiyum shtaris requires a whole set of transaction. But what's the point of the shtar? So what does the shtar do? The shtar, right, the edus on the shtar locks in the transaction. Kiyum shtaris certifies the signature. So this is incredible. So let's say in a case where Reuben was a dayan for Kiyum shtar, so now let's play this out. Right, so Levi sells a field to Shimon, and then they drop a document, and now they want to bring the document to Beis Din for certification. Reuben is one of the dayanim on the Beis Din to certify. Right, Reuben's Beis Din certifies the document, and then after it's certified, Reuben says to Shimon, by the way, the field is stolen from me. Everyone agrees in that case. Reuben has a valid claim. That's a valid. When we say Reuben has a valid claim, obviously saying something was stolen from you is not a claim. Right? I mean, it's a claim. What it means is Reuben now has the right to what? Pursue that claim. Right? So again, why? And everyone agrees in that case. Everyone agrees in that case. Why? Because Reuben's acting as a guy for Kiyum shtaris has nothing to do with the transaction. All Reuben was doing was just saying, oh yeah, the signatures we can say, we can speak, you guys recognize the signatures, fantastic. We do, sign it up, right, and then we're done. Certified, we're done. So everyone agrees in that case, but in no way erodes his claim to go ahead and pursue the stolen, right, the stolen claim, the claim for the stolen claim. Now, Sha'in came, when he's a witness to the actual transaction, sale, from Levi to Shimon, and that's case again, part of signing on a shtar is what? You are claiming the transaction itself is valid. When you say claim the transaction is valid, you can't go ahead and claim that same person is stolen from you. Hanmo says, yes, I can. The transaction was valid. In other words, yes, Levi sold to Shimon. But at the end of the day, it's my own. Good. So says the Gemara. I saw a similar outcome. That's the next case in which there was. I remember again. Right? So same case, but let's say it's not my same case. In this case, Shimon the purchaser, or Shimon the purchase contested property with fellow parcel A. Shimon is selling parcel B and uses parcel A to identify the borders of parcel B. Reuben himself signs on that shtar as well, and not as well, but Reuben sells on that shtar. The Mishnah says everyone agrees that after he sells on that shtar, he no longer has the right to pursue anything that belongs to him. The parcel is that's only true ultimately. Rashi said, that's the nafat masnisin siman la'achar. Havarasa hamuchsak ba siman li'atzmo Reuben sha'ora listen to this. That's only true when what? When Shimon is selling the parcel to someone else. What happens if Shimon is selling the parcel to Reuben himself? Shimon is selling parcel B to Reuben. And I happens to be in that sale, Shimon uses parcel A, which is the requested property, as a border identification. But ultimately, in that case, even though Reuben, right, even as if you said, Reuben did not go ahead and use out on his ability to reclaim parcel A. Why? The Amar, either of the this will say, I will not agree to this. They'll have a Muslim in this group. But ultimately, again, Shimon would not sell the property. In other words, the concern over here is that if Shimon knows that Reuben is going to be claiming parcel A, he's going to be reticent to what? Selling parcel B. So Shimon, Reuben wants to buy parcel B. If I lodge my complaint now, then I'm not going to get parcel B. And certainly, again, even inside parcel A. So the Gemara says, might be some trouble here. What's the given at that? We buy the Lemema Mega. So maybe, like I said, maybe we didn't put it there. Paul purchases also Shimon. Other side of this, so I'll tell you guys. I'm purchasing also from Shimon. In a transaction, Shimon is saying that parcel B, right, borders on Shimon's other parcel, parcel A. Guys, I just want to tell you, things like a sidebar. I'll tell you guys, it's really bad. You might also just don't think about saying anything is not a lockdown transaction. Maybe that's what we should say. Make him a job, not go. Like, let him go. One says, yeah, that'll work really well. Chavra is like, Chavra is like. This is good, right? Your friend has a friend, and the friend of your friend has a friend. Which I will say is another way of saying, don't rely on anyone's confidentiality. Right? So the mice again, if Ruben says something sort of different, potentially, so the witnesses, they're going to say something, and what's going to happen? It's going to cause the whole transaction. Partially because of that. Good, you know the scholars. So Kaveh is like, who's that saw similar offer? So we'll say, so let's do this. In this case, so the piece over here is, so let's go back. So let's say, so this is just a unique piece over here. So remember, let's go back. The Mishnah said that in a case where Ruben is now signed on a shtar, signed, right, is a witness to a document where Shimon is selling parcel B to another party, and in parcel B, he's using parcel A, that's the parcel, as one of the borders. And Ruben signs on that document, Ruben gives up his right to further to any more claim parcel A. That's only true. Now, if I give the clarification, that's true if Shimon was selling it to another party. But if Shimon was selling it to Ruben himself, so Ruben doesn't object to the use of parcel A as a border, that's because Ruben doesn't want to fall into jeopardy the whole transaction. Fine. So listen, I go back to the original case. Who does also not? So let's go back to the Mishnah's original case. Right, so the Mishnah's original case, so Allah I say now, that Ruben is a on the style where Shimon is selling parcel B using parcel A as a border. So what happens? Here are the shepherds. So after the transaction happens, now what happens? So Ruben claims, by the way, parcel A is mine. Parcel A is mine. So what happens? Shepherd, then he died. Ruben died. Right, so Ruben died. Right? Like Ruben died after raising the objection to the ownership of parcel A. Okay. What happens? The opening of the trust. Let's say, so now again, so after Ruben passed away, right, either Ruben made decisions for this beforehand, or the days appointed an apotropos. Now there's an executor of Ruben's estate. Okay, so I'll stop the credit for me that Abaye. So the apotropos came before Abaye. Amarle, saw similar actions. Now what happens? The apotropos is coming. Why is he coming? The apotropos is saying, listen, before Ruben died, Ruben claimed that field A belonged to him. So the apotropos says, I am coming to follow up on that claim. I'm coming to follow up on that claim. Okay, so Abaye says, listen, there's no claim. Listen, Krishna. Normally I saw similar after, even as a result. We already know this case. Ruben signed onto this document where Shimon used field A as a border identification for field B. And the Mishnah says once you do that, you go ahead and you relinquish all of your rights. Nothing more to talk about. To which the apotropos says, you're right. But Amar Ihava of his sons, yes, Mikhail, Avakoim, the Amar, Halem, and Parasisila. Very interesting. So I will say, so the apotropos says, Ruben is still alive, but Ruben would say is yes. I agree. I signed on a document where Ruben used field A as a border for field B. It's really the only thing I was agreeing to was that perhaps Shimon owns a narrow strip of field A. A narrow strip of field A. That's what he owned. Anyway, Shakur Ahmed said that's a good point. Rabbi Rothschild is so they said it's actually very interesting. That the claim over here is that right? That if I go ahead, Rabbi Rothschild says, let's say I say sold you a field, right? The field is mine, and the only thing I sold you in that field was the narrow strip. Such a claim could actually be believed. So the Gemara is supposed to see what's happening over here. So in other words, Ruvain signed on this document that where Shimon was selling the field to another party, Shimon was selling field B. The field B was sold with a border identification of field A. Ruvain signed on it. After Ruvain signed on it, the transaction happened. Ruvain said, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi. After that, Ruvain dies. Apotropos comes along and says, tries to sign up the affairs of the state, becomes the guy, and the Apotropos listen, you've been playing this going to field this is. Rabbi says that's fine, field A is his. Ben says that's fine, but it's a Mishnah. Right? Ruvain sign on that document. Sign that document using field A as a border to field B, he abdicated all rights to the field. To which the Apotropos says, no, that's what he was here. You're playing all Shimon really owns in that field is just a narrow strip. That's what he was identifying as the border. To which Abai says that's a good kind of. But Sil Havli has Kalam Echad ultimately again, which still should have to go ahead. So in other words, now Abai says the Apotropos, even if that's a good claim, that's fine, but you still have to leave in Shimon's possession a narrow strip. Havi Alei, this cut the so listen, here's the problem. On that narrow strip, there was a line of countries, that narrow border strip, pretty valuable. So Gemara says. So I'm gonna have each to have a avot, avot yasmitayim, avot kohen ba'amar, hazaki v'lakachti v'ero. This is great. The Abishop says the feeling was a right? Proving was that I keep claim while it's true that I sold that border strip back to Shimon, I then subsequently purchased it. Abai says, this is not only Shaper Kabbalah. So good. Don't have Yochanan. In time, the Amar Chazaj Velakashi, no. So let's say, ultimately, again, we're going to claim I sold it, but then I repurchased it, which you believe. But let's say, the reason that is because this is Rashi says, Pesha Asar, La Pesha Hitya. And then it's like, the key over here is like, look at Rashi, Naaman. Here's the case, just get the case on totality. Naaman, La Pesha Asar, Pesha Hitya. The Ne'akash even tries to show out. So I will say, the key thing here is where, remember, Shimon sold the field, sorry, Levi sold the field to Shimon. Ruvain, and then again, it gets more complicated. But now what happens? So now you have Ruvain, sorry, then you have Shimon, here we go, you have, right, Levi selling the field to Shimon, field A. Okay, fine. Now what happens? Shimon sells field B to another party. But in that transaction, he uses field A as a border identification. Ruvain signs on that shtar, that bill of sale, that Shimon makes for the party of field B. Afterwards, what happens? Shimon, so Ruvain says, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi and sold to you, Shimon. So remember again, still halach in the Mishnah is we don't believe you. We don't believe you. But let's say in this case, it's becoming a bit more complicated. In this case, what happens is Ruvain goes ahead and claims the thing is stolen from him. Not only that, Ruvain brings witnesses. He brings agents. That's the only blanket here. He brings witnesses. Now they say, after he goes in and brings witnesses, what happens? He died. Okay, now what happens? Apotropos comes to Abai. Apotropos says, listen, I'm here to talk about this place. Abai says, there is no code. It's a mishpah. Ruvain signed on the document. Apotropos says, but he has Aegis. Abai says it's for a second. Essentially, the Aegis is negated in the face of what? Ruvain's signature. In other words, once it is signed for that document, the effect should be signed away his rights. Here's the Apotropos says, no. What you understand is, he actually went ahead and sold back, right? He sold to Shimon a strip of land. Okay. So now what you're telling me is, when Ruvain signed the document, he wasn't yielding his rights to the rest of the field. What was he acknowledging? That Shimon owns a strip of land of field A that borders on field B. that in no way is yielding his right to the rest of field A. That's good. But Abai says, okay, that's fine, so that you can pursue your claim on the rest of field A. But what? But you have to go ahead and at least leave in Shimon's possession what? The strip of land. To which Apotropos says, but 1 second, there's more to the story. Reuben bought back the strip of land from Shimon. He bought it back. To which Abai says, which is a saying, why? Because this is the passion, also a passion of why? Because the only way you do about the sale was how? Was through Reuben. Right? Right through Reuben. We didn't know about the sale. Without the sale, all you would have is what? The Aid was saying that the mice of the field was stolen from Reuben. So now Reuben, so to speak, makes Apotropos is telling us that a sale happened of the strip. Now Reuben's further qualifying and telling us after the sale occurred, Reuben bought it back from Shimon. It's a Pesha, also a Pesha, in which case Reuben slash Apotropos should be believed. It turns out that Reuben, it turns out that he should really walk be able to walk in. As soon as he could prove his claim, that he should really be able to walk into the field in its entirety, including the strip of countries. Incredible. Rabbi is also let's take it from the story. Rabbi, I meant to Mocha Apotropos, Moki Ki Ad Yodel Apotropos for this was the aspect. Because the entire takeaway is you gotta get an Apotropos like this. Right there. I say this is you gotta surround yourself with good people. Right? This Apotropos Rabbi says knew exactly what he was doing. Good. So let's say so for our purposes, I love for myself. How do we this is a complicated case. That is a very complicated case. Remember again, we'll say that what we have essentially that in these cases, a couple of different cases, just because I'm just going to tell you quickly. Rambam Paskin, this is an Hilchos Kohen V'Nitan, Erek Tes Zayin, Halachos Aleph Beis. We're not going to have time for everything. I'm going to leave out the Kalam case. I'm just going to give you the Mishnah. Here it is. Reuben Shemacha the Shimon Saga. Reuben sent the Reuben sold the field to Shimon. Bahaya Levi, they were watch out. Rabbi changes the name. I'm going to keep it like we have it, right? So let's say, Levi sold the field to Shimon. And Reuben was one of the witnesses on the shtai. And what happens? Subsequently, right? Reuben claims after the transaction occurs. Reuben claims that what? That Allah Alamaisa, Levi stole it from me. Ain Shomim. Rambam Paskin was like, no. I remember again. You're going to claim, yes, I signed on it because I wanted it to go from Levi to Shimon because I feel a better chance getting I feel back from Shimon and from Levi. The Rambam says, case closed. Case closed. Allah for myself. Right, Allah for myself. There's absolutely nothing to talk about once you are party to the transaction. Right, once you are a witness on that shtar, you have effectively ceded and yielded any rights that you have to leave that field as well. However, the Rambam says, if Reuben acted as a direct shtaris, not yield or cede any future rights. Again, going back to the distinction of the Gemara. That Allah for myself, an aid certifies the transaction. A guardian only certifies signature. So it was like Allah for myself, don't pass like I'm learning this mission and pass like that. There's more, much more. Again, Hilchos Kohen V'Nitan, Perek Kazai, Halachos Aleph, and Beis. But that's Allah for the good. Mishnah, quickly. Misha, look at the Dinas Hayam, Beidaya, Sadeh. So, again, it just gets better. Look who's in this case. Everyone said, by the way, you ask yourself, what does this have to do with Ksubas? So, first of all, so good for the chance. Right there. That's answer number one. That is answer number one. So I say, so remember again, the reason, just so you know, in all seriousness, the reason why we're doing this is because remember, the way this kind of started off, there were the rulings of Admon and Hanan. And remember again, it started off with a discussion about Mizonos. That is what is tasteless. Now, let's say we're just going through all of their rulings. Watch this is a great case. Misha, I'm not going to do that. We'll say, watch this case. Reuben goes overseas. Now, Reuben owns a field. Now, we'll say, interestingly enough, the case over here, Reuben's field is landlocked, which means that the only way he was ever able to get into his sister's house, he had a right of way. He had a right of way with someone. So what happened? So Michal, that's why he does the death of Leo. So let's say, so now what's the problem? He comes like he's away for a while. He can't remember the right of way. Where is my right of way to get into my field? My question is, you can imagine, none of the neighbors are being forthcoming. Right? No, because obviously no one wants to think about that. No one wants to think about that. Right? So Admon Omer, Yelef look itself. Admon says, look, since we have to use logic, figure out what is the shortest way to get into this field, and let's assume that was the previously established right of way. The Chum say no. Yikna lo v'derech b'mei amana or yifrach ba'avir. You have a choice. You have a choice. Either go ahead and pay top dollar, whoever's willing to negotiate with you, or fly. Or fly. Right? Right? Okay, right? Or fly. Figure out a way to fly. So again, this is actually interesting. It comes to listen. Ruben, you went overseas, you lost information. The burden is on you. So pretty much, again, no one has to do anything to you. So you're going to have to try and figure out a way to negotiate the top dollar right of pass. So my time is I understand. What's logical to Rabbanon? See, what's like, the reason why Rabbanon's position doesn't seem to make sense is if there's one thing we know, it's that what? Ruben had a right of way. He had a right of way. We'll say, I'll say it's the right of way. Even today, and the right of way agreements are like, you think should be the simplest part of a real estate transaction. It's incredible how complicated right of way agreements are. It's fascinating. In any event, the Gemara says, as far as I understand, obviously he has a right of way. This was his field. He used the field. He was getting from it out of his so there was a right of way agreement. So I'm going to say, listen, logically, he's going to take it easy. So just to see that's the path he had. What's logical to Rabbi? We don't know this. Don't shiki for us. I gave it away a little bit. I'm sorry. Shiki for our part of the Adam I gave it away. This is a landlocked field. So there's 4 different people. So let's say, what's the problem? What's the problem? The problem is if you can imagine that we need to stand everyone's to shut them away from the tradition, so beautiful. And then he goes to number 1. Like, was man by the way through here? No. Not here. Like number 2, no, not here either. 3, 4. So looks like the problem is each has the ability to deflect it to the other. So this is one of these interesting cases where we know a right of way exists, but we can't figure out a way to enforce it against any one particular party. If that's the case, then again, why does Admon say that Ruben is seemingly sees the shortest right of way? So very quickly, so let's listen to this. When you have 4 people who want their own respective fields from 4 other people, or for that matter, 4 people who want their fields from 1 person. Everyone agrees in that case, each party could deflect to someone else. So Gemara says, so keep the word is not like this now. Let's listen to this. The Taj, the Asim Bahada. Watch this. Let's say now all 4 fields, all 4 of the landlocked fields, the landlocked fields, are all owned by 1 person. Right? So you've got Reuben in the middle, and all 4 of the surrounding fields are owned by 1 person. That will say what? Bought it from 4 individual owners. So in this case over here, we're calling Shimon. Shimon now owns the 4 fields which surround Reuben's field. So Shimon bought it from 4 independent people. Watch this. So Admon saw when we come up and down for Islegaba. So Admon said, listen, Reuben could go to Shimon. You know that I own a rock. We can figure out what I own it, so give it to me. Those are the Rabbanon said this. Shimon could say, this. Shut up. You be quiet. These are going to come to me. My foolish Allah, even though that's the issue. So this. Shimon could say, you can go to the deal. If you want to try to negotiate, you negotiate. You're going to make problems. I'm going to return the land to the previous 4 owners. It's going to be owned by 4 independent people. And then the one that saying, Reuben will never be able to get right away. Why? Because each of them will deflect you to the other. So if you want to negotiate, you can negotiate. But if you're going to claim Magiali, right, something's owed to me, I'll simply go ahead and return the land and I'm going to be stuck forever. Incredible. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. Who Damalu is telling us quickly, finish off the subject. Who Damalu, a guy says, Who Damalu, Dikla Liblas. Listen to this. A guy, Ruben, is about to die. Right before he dies, he says, I want my brother to inherit the palm tree. He's giving a palm tree to his brother. Also, he asked me, so Ruben dies, and the sons went ahead and divided up the estate, but didn't give the palm tree to his brother. אז יוסי פוגע, וחזי לא יבוא לביקה. עכשיו יוסי נאמר, היינו מסניסים. עכשיו יוסי wanted to say that I said that he's sitting as a Mishnah. Why? What could happen? The donor wants to go ahead and come to collect the country. Right? And each son could say what? Each one could say what? No, not from my portion, from his portion, from his portion, from his portion. I'm going to buy you meat. I'm going to try to get you guys. Listen to how the time that's enough to it. Hacha diklo gabayu hava. So let's listen to this. Here's the difference. So we'll say, when it comes to the right of way, the right of way really only does exist on one field. When it comes to the daughter's right to a palm tree, that is a right that combines upon all of their inheritance portions. So therefore, my takanasai, what should we do? What they should do is give her a palm tree, and then redivide the estate minus the palm tree. That's what should happen. Okay, we'll say very quickly. I'm sorry, just give me a little one more minute and we'll stop. Actually, I will say we'll stop over here for today. We'll just pick up with this the last piece of I tried. Okay, we'll say Shkoyach. Again, great week ahead of us. Emir Hashem, Shkoyach. All right, everyone, have a great day, everyone.
These are the 7 most powerful men in China. They represent the top leadership positions of the ruling party, and their identities are revealed every 5 years at a carefully choreographed political event called the National Congress. China's Communist Party unveils its new leadership over the next 5 years. The order of appearance is symbolic. The first person to emerge is the head of the party for the next 5 years. At the most recent event in October 2022, that person was Xi Jinping, China's president for the last 10 years, who walked out in the top spot a historic 3rd time after getting rid of China's presidential term limit that restricted all his predecessors to 2 terms, a signal that he may be planning to stay in power for life.
All right, well, say good morning, let us begin. Hashem, a great is just us to enter into our last week of the Shefet Sudas. I want to go ahead and begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Should thank our Commodore sponsors for the month of Tishrei, to thank Dr. Linda Weinberg, Sarah, Nikki Grant, Julia, Rina, and Eve. Loving young dedicating short this month, loving many of their husband, father, and leader, Dr. Paul Weinberg, Eretz Moshe Ben Abraham David. Thank Ayala and Saints, dedicating the shir in this month, and speaking of Tir Shaliba, for Shulamas Isha, and Zeb, Chris, and everyone here is being traveling in the session. I do the morning sponsors. Adam Zeisman, the version of the Edmund grandmother, I was saying, Father, Abraham Ben Aaron, Zvi and Shane Shir, in honor of Vicky Hiva, and Elias Shmuel and Shia Pepper, in honor of Ari Lerner, and all the guys for the show. Beautiful. I also like to thank our Dr. sponsors for today. Alan and Andrew Stellis, in honor of the Bat Mitzvah of their granddaughter, Julie Rosenblum, which wrote the Torah and Mitzvahs in which that is for the entire family and all of the beautiful, beautiful amount. And also with that, let us begin very, very excited. First of all, very excited to learn in general, and also to recognize these very beautiful news like these confluence of events. Our people are finishing the chapter on Rosh Chodesh, so we're ending things, beginning things, closing out Chodesh Tishrei, beginning fresh month, beginning fresh month, excited we'll say let's begin. Today's daf is Confess 109. We are picking up in Eretz Hashem on the bottom of Tefessim days. 108B. 108B. We really left off. We left off yesterday after the Mishnah. So the Mishnah sent us up. Apusik ma'oz the pasuk. It's a very interesting case. Someone promises money to his seller. Age-old story, right? So someone promises money to his son-in-law. Now, I will say, in this particular case, what's unfolding over here is like this. Essentially, we're talking about a child. So imagine for a moment that Reuben is marrying Rachel. Rachel's father promises Reuben some amount of money. And what happens? He pashat loas harega. And then the father-in-law extends his foot. So what does it mean extends his foot? So again, extends his foot means the father-in-law doesn't pay. So Rachel's father doesn't pay the dowry. Now look at that. Remember, pashat loas harega. Lashon zayin v'amar no age she'enu pashat dvarim tol tit sha'al gabi rabi. This primary expression of extending the foot, essentially, I'm giving you nothing. Take dirt what's on my shoe. Take dirt. Now, in general, what this sounds like is the father-in-law is intentionally not giving his son-in-law the money. But Jesus, the king doesn't have to be set up by them. That's just the way that's what the Mishnah is saying. So, Pojalo is Rago here. Take the dirt that's on my foot. I'm not giving you any money. The point over here is father-in-law promised money and now is not delivered. So let's say that the problem we're in is that Kedushin has already taken place. So Reuven was already Mekadosh Rachel, and Simon has not yet been done. Father-in-law indicates that whatever the situation is, and now you will not pay the money. Once that Rachel Papa confess, Eshet Ashet Hadin Rosha, the Chachamim say, ultimately again, literally she has to sit down until her hair grows gray, which means she's stuck. Rachel's stuck. That another at this point in time, the control is in Reuven's hands, and either he can make a choice to marry her, right, or ultimately just wait and do nothing until her father pays back. After all, again, there was an agreement. There was an agreement that was made. Rachel's father was not honoring the agreement. So again, Reuven going on to a holding pattern of those other of these agreements. As Abner says, before the Yisha Tomer, Rachel should say to Reuven, so Amnon says like this. Rachel could say to Reuven, listen, I, Rachel, was going to promise you money. If I was going to promise you money, then you can hold your own head. If you don't have that, then you can essentially, hold me in this marriage until either I pay you or until I pay you. But again, Achshav, Sha'ada Pasach, starting to pull the rascals, Osinos, Okidor. She says, what do you want from me, my father? So you're going to hold me accountable for you. You're going to punish me for my father's actions. You didn't marry me, rightly soon. What do you want me? So if I say, I'm not going to no, I need to go. And I says, I think I know this correct. Look almost like fundamental mathematics. Once again, just to reframe the case. So Rachel's going to get married to Reuven. Rachel's father promises Reuven $10,000. Right? That's the agreement. That's the dowry. Reuven does Kedushin. Now, father-in-law says, I'm not giving you. I can't give you. I won't give you. Whatever it is. The point is, he's not giving. So now, Chachamim say, Reuven has every right to essentially hold Rachel in this marriage until her father decides to pay. And ultimately, he doesn't pay. So then Rachel's going to grow old in the street of Kedushin. Abnon says that's not right. It's not right. Like ultimately, again, as I said, even the Chachamim are not necessarily saying it's right. The Chachamim are just saying it's legal. Because this is technically a legal first that he has to force his father-in-law's hand. So Rachel says that. So Abnon says that Rachel can say to her husband, that's not right. I didn't have this agreement with you. My father did. Why are you punishing me because of my father? Listen, don't keep me in limbo. You can marry me or divorce me. And that guy, I think that was Paolo's father. That's right. So let's listen to those guys now. Mishnah does not reflect the view of the following time. As a rich time, we read in the so fascinating is this idea. I'm Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Huda, no reference to Adon, the Chachamim, ala Chosek, Ba'os, the Chosek. The Pashat Roas Harega, she holy Kisha Tomer, Abba, Pasak Alai, Ma Ani, Yehoda Lasos. So it was very interesting. A different First over here. In this place, the quoting the same case. But in this case, Rabbi Yossi at Rabbi Yehuda posits that every one of these, in the case where the father defaulted on the agreement he made, that Ruvain can't hold Rachel hostage in this marriage. That Rachel has every right to say, I didn't default, either marry me or divorce me, but don't keep me in this state. Sa'amada. So Laura Weiser and focus on Tamir and Apple. Al Shachaske he alatzno. Oh. I will say in the Bryce 6 version, when the father defaulted, everyone agrees that Reuben can't hold Rachel. I just really this is. Everyone is going to agree that on a conceptual level, a man should never hold his wife in a marriage. Like that's never something that Chazal led. Why is Kodesh Baruch Hu created the system of treatment in a way which seems to give the husband much more power, sometimes even absolute power? I don't know. That's a question that we're going to ask. We have to ask for talking about money. And everyone comes. Everyone will explain to us why the halacha seem to be heavily slanted to give the man the power. But again, this is a legal discussion. So legal discussions sometimes do not enter into the arena of what is right. Right? We all know this. This is why we teach this to our kids. Just because something is mutter, right? Just because it's permissible, does not mean it should be done. So again, we're talking about what's permissible. Right? So Chachamim say again, it's permissible for him to use the marriage as leverage to go ahead and extract money from his father. It's legal. It's legal. Is it right? Is it right? Of course it's not right. Of course it's not right. It's just important to understand that, which I know everyone does, but sometimes it just makes the life, as you get older, especially, you learn that even when everyone knows something, it's still important to say. And I said, by the way, it's concerns, God, the person has to desire the marriage, but that should never ever be used as leverage. That should never be used as a definite way to extract something that a husband, right? It's not what Chazal is borrowed from them. It's not what Chazal wants. And the truth is, nothing good ever comes from hurting another human being, and nothing good ever comes by using halacha as a means of expression. Okay, but back to our idea. So again, the Brisa has a different view on this, right? So in the Brisa's version, Rabbi Chachamim and Admon both agree that what? That Allah Shalom himself, there was the father who made the financial arrangement with Ruvain, and that the father's default, or I don't know what the other is, again, default doesn't pay whatever it is, so everyone agrees, and from the Shari Rida, that Allah Shalom himself, Rachel says to Ruvain, even marrying your husband, but you cannot keep him in this proposal. So what's the machlokas? What's the machlokas? Al shepaski alatzma. What happens if Rachel promised Ruvain money? Right, so before they do Kiddushin, Rachel says to Ruvain, listen, you Kaddish me, and if you Kaddish me, I'm going to give you $10,000. Okay, so now what happens? Ruvain's Kaddish Rachel, and then what happens? Rachel doesn't pay. Won't pay, can't pay, doesn't pay. So I says, now watch this. Shacham becomes a Kiddushin, the Ashur Kabin Roshah, the Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, promise, down in the Ruvain is not going to pay what you do soon with you until you figure this out. So you can go into a holding pattern over here until you, Rachel, figure out how to satisfy the obligation you entered into. Admon says, Holy Shetomar, just listen to this, says, Admon says, so what can she say in this case? This is great. Holy Shetomar, Kisura and Sha'abonoso. She says, no. When I said, I'm going to give you $10,000, I figured the same bank that has been bankloading my life up until this point in time. Right? It's incredible. No credit limits, right? No qualifications, nothing. I figured the same bank that was taking care of me my entire life is going to take care of me now. So she said, I know I said that I was going to pay you, But again, I automatically assume that it was my father who was going to go out and pay for this Virginia. Ba'akshav she'ein avonosim alai ma'an yichol elasos. Otinos okdor. So she said, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? I guess, in other words, what Rachel says, I'm not purposely being difficult over here. I never had the money to back up this promise, right? I never had the money to back up the promise. It was always going to be my father. Now my father doesn't want to pay, don't hold me hostage in this relationship, either marry me or divorce me. So they'll say, so I just want to point out over here, so you don't know explain that there's two versions of this Mahlokas. In our Mishnah's version, right, the Mahlokas case is where the father of the bride, the father of Rachel promised and then doesn't pay. Chachamim say, okay, Reuven should wait, Reuven could do nothing, Reuven goes for a holding pattern until the Shver pays off. Like Admon says, she could say to him, this is not my fault, either divorce me or marry me, but don't go and keep me in this holding state. Like, the Grace says, no, in that case where the father defaults, everyone agrees that Rachel could tell Reuven he will divorce me or marry me, is either do what's the Mahlokas case? Where Rachel promises the money. So the Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, you made a promise, make good on the promise. You're going to go on the promise, Reuven has under obligation towards you. You're going to a holding pattern. Admin says, no. When Rachel says, I made the promise, I'm keeping my father. I'm going to my father. So ultimately, you can't hold it against you, either marry me or divorce me. Incredible. I'm going to go. And then Gamliel says, and then also in the Brisa also, I'm going to go and he has to do Admin. Again, in the Brisa, you have Gamliel agrees with Admin. So now, let's analyze this. When is this so? When is this so? Says the Gemara. That's Amurim. Don't know about it. I'm not perfect. They say when is all of this said? Right? Exclusively the Brisa. Every time you have the gold there. But with a Kipano, with a minor, we will force him. We will force him. So the says, force him in the mind. Force who? Force who to do what? If ultimately at the end of the day you're going to force the father to pay off, so they'll say it makes much more sense to force the father in a case of the Gedola than it does to force him in a case of the Kipana. Why? Because most of the talking about a case of the Kipana, promised money. Right, Rachel is going to promise money to you. Just the allotted rate of that promise not there. That's what it's meaningless. So if you're going to be talking about a case where you're forcing the father to pay out, it makes no sense to force the father to pay out in a case where the Gedola brother made a commitment. So the Gemara says, you don't want to don't tell me by the way. Ella Amarava hoping the foul. Now the Rabbi says, no. What it means is you force the husband to give a gap. So it's like, now that's what also talking about a case of a Kitana. So the word of the Kitana, and it's written that the Kitana, ultimately again, not binding. Therefore, the Rabbi says, the Kitana will force the husband to give a gap. We'll see how that turns out in the Rambam, which is a little bit. I don't need to be general, which is the Kitana. One back, and so let's finish this argument, we'll go back to the Rambam. So Amar Yitzchak ben Elazar Moshe the Chizkiah. Some of them are going to be raw and is the Amar. So we'll say now we're going back to the Mishnah. Any time that you find that what the Gamliel says, right? Any place where you find that the Gamliel said halacha follows Amon, halacha follows. Halacha indeed follows. Only Rav and Rav Nachman. You look at Brisa. He's actually even in the Brisa just in the Mishnah. Whereas now we're saying whenever the Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. So is that true just for the Mishnah? And the Brisa says, well, are they need coming on the Mishnah? Did I say just to the Mishnah? Listen to what I'm saying. I said any place means what? A Mishnah or a Brisa. Any time that the Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. Incredible. I'm going to say over here, I'm going to bring it up. Based on halacha to right, ultimately, so this is the case. Now, the zero is in the Bible, right? In the two situations, ultimately again, well, based on Shamras Hanan, Yosebo, right, Rabbi Rothschild and Zach, I said that halacha follows Hanan, Shiva Gan, Shamar Admon, in halacha Yosebo, but ultimately again, the 7 cases where Admon said the halacha, and the Gamliel said that the halacha like Admon, the halacha does not follow Admon. So that's how it is. Shnei dvarim she'anach hanan halacha k'moso u'kiyotze there's a meaning like this. The two halachas that Hanan brought down, and ultimately again, Kiyotze those who classify like Hanan, halacha follows them. Shiva Darm Shama Admon, Ein Halacha Kimos, over the Yosebo, the 7 cases that are brought up in the book of Admon, the halacha neither follows Admon, nor like the ones who trusted like Admon. As I want to start the halacha to Shia, the Rakham Shama Rabbi Gamliel, Ron, and Shiva Admon halacha Kimos. So we just said before that any time that Rabbi Gamliel said, I see the words of Admon to be correct, like the halacha follows Rabbi Gamliel. And those who pass correct, with Allah is to say, main one Shana Haman Allah in two situations where Haman said, Allah follows him, and those who trust him like him. Just like Allah said, Shiva Gon Shana Admon, Ain Allah Yoseba. It was like the 7 cases where Admon brought down this halacha. Allah does not follow him. The Gemara says, I'm sorry, Ain Allah Yoseba. And Allah doesn't follow those who quote him. Hakimo, so Allah Habakumi. It sounds like they're just Admon by himself. That Allah would follow him. But if you talk to Allah, you should be this we also understand in these cases, that's all these mistakes. There is Admon stating halacha, and you have a Gamliel weighing in that halacha follows as that which Yosef. You might not suggest an immediate distinction between when Admon says the halacha himself versus when you have Rabbi Gamliel coming along and saying, oh, the halacha follows it. I, Bahamar Yitzchak, the halacha Mishnah, the Tiskiyah. So Malcolm Shamar Rabbi Gamliel Ron is to be Abba halacha. So I, but he just said another, whenever Rabbi Gamliel says, I see the words of Admon to be correct, that the halacha follows him. So you might just Amar in, no Amar no. It sounds like the halacha only follows Admon when Rabbi Gamliel voices his support. So if Rabbi Gamliel doesn't voice his support, then the halacha won't follow Admon. Halacha goes on to say, Shmei Tvam Shamar Hanan halacha Kimosek Yoseko. That is what it is to say. In the two situations, the 2 things that Hanan said that the halacha follows. In the 2 cases where Hanan quoted the halacha, the others supported him, ultimately again halacha follows. Shiva Dvarim, Shamar Admon, Yeshman Shalacha Kimosek Yosebo, Yeshman Shein Halacha Kimoso, Elo Yosebo. The first is Admon, there are some situations where halacha remains and halacha won't follow him. Other times that the halacha will only follow him when he's quoted in the name of others. So one that the Shara Gamliel, Ron is to the Admon, halacha Kimoso, there wasn't any place Rabbi Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon, and not necessarily in the other cases of Admon. So the Gemara is essentially just trying to go back and forth and figure out how you find the principle that applies to the rulings of Admon. You're going to see the halacha and Isa. There's no overarching principle. In fact, each of these cases are reckoned independently, as you're going to see in the Quran. So halacha and Isa, let's put out the sukkah. How do we pass forward? This is really a great case. Money's promised, and what happened? Money's not paid. Now the only problem is, at the time of default, what's the status of the marriage? The status of marriage? Has already been done. So now we have a problem. So you'll say, if you default, the condition fine. So then what? Don't get married. Everybody go home. That's it. The problem we have over here is the default happens after condition before Nisur. Furthermore, 2 cases of default. What are the 2 cases of default? Case A, father default. Case B, brother, daughter, wife default. We'll say machlokas, Admon, Machlokas. Then there's a further machlokas, Mishnah and the Brisa as to when the machlokas is attached. We'll say, here you go. Rama Baskins. Orphos Isha, Parak Tachimo, Halacha Tes Zayin. We'll say, sorry, I looked to these things before I said, why I always came to the Rambam and not to Shulchan Aruch. So this is another close to the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch has been the same way. In general, the derech of the Rambam is that the Rambam's formulation of halacha is often much truer to the text of the Gemara. So if we're just trying to extrapolate halacha l'maisa from the Gemara, the lashon of the Rambam often tethers you to the sugya much more, whereas the Shulchan Aruch already is a distilled version of the halacha. So again, the bottom line is say the same thing. This is what the Rambam says. Here we go. It's great case. So this is great. So here's how the Shulchan Aruch sets up the case. right? So what happened? Rachel's going to marry Reuben. Rachel's father will call him Yaakov. Like Rachel's father commits $10,000 to Rachel's husband to Reuben. The halacha of the Medina Acharas, meaning the father relocates to another country. Sorry? Another place. He goes out, like, Yehovi Hinoma Labal, Ani Lo Pasaki Alatzmi, Ma'an Yehola Lasos, O Pinos Pelon Duno, O Patrein Viyat. So those says, number one, we constantly like Adnan in the Mishnah. When it was the father who defaulted, Rachel says to his husband, listen, I give you 3 divorce, either divorce me or marry me. Right? But don't keep me in this. So don't say that's halach and one, like Amor in the Mishnah. Aval, impossible על עצמה, ולא הגיע ידה, הרי זה יושבת עד שתמצא מה שפסקה או עד שתמס. So that's an interesting halach l'maisa. We keep asking like the coming in the Bryce's case. If she is the one who's made the commitment, then ultimately she has to figure out to honor it. And he has no obligation to do anything until she figures out how to honor this commitment. Also, remember again, this is where she made the commitment. Remember, Admon's out for her. Remember again, what was Admon's out for her? What was he out for her? I didn't promise. I know it was me, but I'm an extension of my father, right? So when I say I promise you to be my father, so that I'm not asking like the coming the crisis case, namely that when she makes the commitment, Rachel herself makes the commitment to Reuben, and then defaults, Reuben should keep a holding pattern of Kedusha until she comes up with the money. And ultimately, again, doesn't have to either marry her or divorce her from me. Once again, this is the legal moral ethical. Should a man ever keep a woman in a relationship over money? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Again, if she says, give me more time, I'm happy to go and try to figure out how to do that. That's fine. She wants the time. But once again, this is the legal ruling, not the moral ethical institution. Like the institutional. Just say, halach l'maisa, we constantly like Admon the Mishnah, therefore again, if father defaults, Reuben can't hold Rachel in a relationship. If Rachel defaults, he has the ability to go into all the entire relationship. Incredible. Mishnah said, very interesting case. Ha'ora al asad in the Chazar. This was when we see the background. Let's take a look at Rashi. First Rashi in the Mishnah. First Rashi in the Mishnah. So let's say in the short lines of Rashi, 2, 4, 6, 7 lines into the short lines. Rashi says, Ha'ora al asad. Watch this. This is fascinating. Reuven ma'arer al sadak shebiyad Shimon. Let's say, so here's the case. Shimon has a deal. Reuven is claiming the field really belongs to Steve. It was stolen from me, and you bought it for me. Now again, he's not accusing Shimon of being complicit in the theft. He's just saying, Shimon, you think you're in the field is really long. Okay, fine. Now watch this. Reuven ma'arer al sadak shebiyad Shimon. But my lady Shemach on the top doesn't mean that. Okay, so there's the case. Right? You've got Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon is in current possession of a field that he bought from Levi. So Levi sold Shimon a field. Reuven says, Shimon, that field you have, that's my field. That's my field. Levi stole it from me and sold it to you. Okay, here's the wrinkle. The Mishnah says, Fasai means, as they that when Levi sold the field to Shimon, he brought the document, and one of the witnesses on the bill of sale is Reuven. So Reuven is a witness on the sale document from Levi to Shimon, and now Reuven is one of the witnesses, says to Shimon, father of the field is stolen. So let's say, so now obviously, like what's going on exactly? Right, so Reuven is claiming, so Shimon, the field you bought from Levi, Levi stole it from me and sold it to you. And now we look at the paperwork and we see that Reuven himself is one of the witnesses on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. So what's the halacha? Admon Omer, almost says it's not a problem. You say to Reuven, so obviously you ask Reuven, I don't understand. If the field, if Levi stole the field from me, then why would you agree to sign the shtar mechira? Right? Why would you agree to sign a bill of sale? Arnold says there's a perfect answer for this. Hashini no achri, harisha kasha himenu. So let's listen to this. Because Ruben could say, listen, Levi is a gazlan. Right? Levi is a thief. Right? Levi is a strong guy. I knew I never had any chance of getting my foot back to me. Shimon, I know you. You're a reasonable guy. You're a reasonable guy. So I figured if I could get the field away from Levi to you, Shimon, now I have a better chance of getting back my stolen field. That's why I agreed to sign on the bill of sale so I could get it out of Levi's hands into your hands. Incredible. Incredible. It was another reality TV. So I'm just saying, like, this is so great. This is incredible. So let's now listen to this. The fun say, no, come on, cut it out. Even as if we sell, what are you talking about? Ruben, again, even if you come forward with a claim that the field that Shimon currently has is stolen from you, that's fine. But then I said, once you're signing up, once you're not a party, but once you're a witness for the transaction, you've lost any right to claim that this property belongs to you, even as if we sell. So take a look at that. Actually, even as we sell, the whole of the plus sum, hold the shit in your is essentially what that from saying is like this. You act as signing on a document, or you get witnessing a document of sell transaction, is effectively saying what? This field has nothing to do with it. It isn't up on the rights to the field. So they always say something to like this. On the flip side, I saw a similar affair. Sorry, on the flip side. I saw a similar affair. So let's say, look at this case, look at Rashi. I saw a muhsab bar similar affair. Shalom machal ruben zeh ha'or ala, ela li'ish affair. Aya mochar sada mitzadzu. U'mitzah lo arba'os mitzari ha'sada. U'chasab ro b'mitzarim mitzar poni sada shali. Ba'asa sada zisam. So let's say, now watch this case. So let's say for a moment that Ruben now owns the disputed field. Right? I'm sorry, Shimon, right? So Shimon owns the disputed field. So now what does Shimon do? Shimon sells another piece of property. Right? So let's say now, so let's call the disputed field A. Field A. Right? So same case. Right? Ruben bought the field from Shimon bought the field from Levi, right? Then there's Ruben. Ruben, of course, is claiming that Levi stole the field from him and now sold it to Ruben. Sold it to Shimon. Sorry. One more time, let me get this right. Okay, so let's say, so again, remember, Levi sells a field to Shimon, right? In the back of all of this, we have Ruben claiming that Levi really sold that field to him. And now, all right, stole that's nice, right? Levi sells a field to Shimon. Good, beautiful. Ruben now is claiming that the field that Shimon bought from Levi was stolen from him by Levi. Okay, so that was case one. And case one is where it turns out that Ruben himself is an aid on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. Okay, so now what do we do with that? So again, according to Admon, so Chachamim say that's it. You lost. Then you signed on the shtar. You've lost any claim. Admon says no. There's still another claim. You didn't get claim. It's easier for me to get the field back from Shimon than it was from Levi. Fine. Case two is Ruben. So Shimon is selling the field. So let's call disputed field A. Shimon is selling field B. Field B. Fine, no problem. So let's say often the way when you would sell a field, if there was a field that was next to other fields, the way you would identify the field that you were selling is by identifying the other fields all around it. Right? I'm selling field A, field B, that is bordered by fields A, D, E. So now in this case over here, Shimon is selling field B. So in the document of sale, makes reference, he says field B borders on my other field, field A. Field A. So in this case, field A is being used as a demarcation point, as a border. So right, field A, the dispute is not being sold at all, but it's being used to identify field B, which is the transaction. So now Ruben is using field A, right? Sorry, Shimon, thank you. Shimon is using field A, as just to identify the border of the field that is being sold. I will say, Ruvain is signing on this document also. Ruvain signing on this document. So now, here's the shayla. Now, in this transaction, in this document, so when Shimon is selling field B, selling field B is also what? So to speak, solidifying his ownership over field A, because he's using field A to identify one of the borders of field B. Ruvain is claiming that this field A was originally his, is signing on this document. So now they'll say, so now what's going to happen after this is over? So now Ruben is going to want to come back and say to Shimon, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi, who subsequently sold it to you. The Mishnah says no. Saw Simon, La'achar, Ibn Esim. At the end of the day, even Admon agrees, which is interesting. Even Admon agrees in this case, that once Ruben signed on this type of star, which used the contested field as a border for the field being sold, everyone agrees that Ruben has relinquished any further rights to claim that the field is his. Okay, interesting. Let's go. I'm Rabbi. Okay, well, so let's go back to that first case. Let's go back to the first case. Please, Lord. But not too long. They're a little bit carried away with this. But let's say so. No, but the truth is, I realize that this we actually have to stay on target because the truth is, Kodesh is Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So the truth is, Tuesday and Wednesday back in our a little bit, and Monday, a little bit long. So we gotta, and we only have 45 minutes on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. So let's say, so here we go. Once they said, all right, by so once they now we're focusing on case number one. So once again, let's just get back to case number one. Right? Shimon purchases a field from Levi. There's a document, right? And the document that says that Levi sold the field to Shimon. One of the witnesses is Reuben. Reuben then comes after the sale is complete, and Reuben comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, the field is mine, Levi stole the field. What? Signed on the document. So again, Chachamim say, sorry, Reuben, you no longer have any claim because Halacha Mesa, you signed on the document. Sorry, you're a witness. We're done. Almon says no. Reuben has a claim. Yes, I signed the document in order to get it out of Levi's hands. Your hands shouldn't be the and I have a better chance with you of getting back my land. Fine. So now Bai says, no shano ela eight. That's only true. Like all of this is only true. If Halacha Mesa, Reuben signed the Machlokas, is only if Reuben signed as a witness. About Zion, no Eve has to say this is fascinating. So let's say if it's really incredible. So if Halacha L'Maisa, Reuben served as a Dayan, as a judge, everyone agrees that he still makes the claim of theft, even though he was the judge over the Now, what is that? Why do you need a judge in this case? Look at Rashi about Dayan. Sheluvish down the field of these in the Tainus, the Mishpat Shim Shtaris, Sha'ibin Barid in the Tibrak Sabyagam, Dayanim Kosin Shtara Binan Nafka Lekabana, Basidu Sa'adya Hasina Zara Bashir Lekabana. So say, watch this. Let's say again, they come to Beis Din to certify document. Kiyum Shtaris. We've spoken about certification of document. Listen over again. What was Kiyum Shtaris? If you danger of the document, on one end in Halacha, document that we never signed style. So that's incredible. The problem is somebody go ahead and forge. Right? Can you forge a star? Sure. So there's a concept of star certification. We call it kiyum shtaris. What's the concept of kiyum shtaris? You bring your star to Beis Din, right? The Beis Din takes a look at it. The Beis Din brings in testimony, or brings in the witnesses to certify that is there, that is their signature. We write a little pen click, right? We write a little either on the document itself or the attached document, and done. The star is certified. So there is this incredible. So a bias is just like this. The machlokas almon and the chachamim in the first case of the Mishnah. It's only that we then sign as a witness in the transaction. But if it was a diner on the Beis Din that certified the document, that was not below his ability to later on claim that the field was stolen from him. Why, Rabbi Rothschild? This is actually fascinating. Returning Rabbi Chia, Ein ha'idin chosmin al hashtar ela in kim karol. Aval, on the base, Aval hadayanim chosmin al papi shelo karol. Those are absolutely incredible. When you witness a transaction, like when you sign as an aid, so what are you signing on? What are you signing on? You're signing on the validity of the transaction. Like that's what you're signing on. That I witness this transaction. This transaction is binding, valid, and legal. When you're a dayan for kiyum shtaros, they will say, "What are you certifying? What are you certifying? Signatures. You are not certifying the transaction. In fact, the dayan, sometimes by kiyum shtaros, the dayan